cover me in sticky sauce and call me spicy ribs, because season 3 of the Football Natter is right here, right now. Harry, tell the people what we're talking about this week.
We're going to be talking about the Premier League team of the season, the Championship race for promotion, and finally, our previews for this Premier League game week.
So, the Premier League team of the season has been announced, and I mean, there's not many shocks in there, apart from one. And if anybody has seen it, I'll read it out to you quickly. So it is Ederson in goal, Alexander-Arnold at right back, Van Dijk and Laporte in the middle, Andy Robertson at left back, and midfield 3 of Fernandinho, Pogba and Bernardo Silva, and a front 3 of Sadio Mane, Raheem Sterling and Sergio Aguero. So, now there's one player missing from all of that, who, funny enough, was up for the PFA Player of the Year, and it's Eden Hazard. And Eden Hazard is not in the team of the season, yet he's up for Player of the Year and Player of the Season. But who is in the team? Well, it's Paul Pogba. Why?
Now, it's interesting, and a lot of people have said
The reason that Pogba is in the team and Hazard isn't is because Hazard is not a centre mid, and they were doing the 4-3-3 formation for the team of the year. That's not good enough. He could play an attacking midfield role, and they could easily play him there. And I think he's got a much more ability, and he's had a much better season than Paul Pogba. And I think most people would agree on that. As you said, up for Player of the Season, and quite rightly so. He's a great one. One of the best seasons he's actually had, in my opinion. And I don't get it. For me, I think it was all right, apart from the Pogba decision. I maybe would have put Doherty from Wolves at right back, or a lot of people have said that Wan-Bissaka should have been there instead. I think both have had a really good season, but Alexander-Arnold's been great, of course, and you were mentioning about the goalkeeper actually.
I was, but before we kind of move on, the whole idea of it doesn't matter what formation you put the team of the season in. The team of the season is the 11 best players from that season. Who cares if they don't play midfield week in, week out? At the end of the day, Hazard was selected on the shortlist for Player of the Season. So why the hell isn't he at least in the team of the season? It's just ridiculous, and I think it gets more bizarre every year. So, but yeah, I mean, yes, you can admit it. Doherty has had a very good season, considering it's his first Premier League season, and Wan-Bissaka as well. But I think Trent Alexander-Arnold, for the age he is and the consistency he's shown for Liverpool this season, has just been incredible. You know, he is probably, as it stands, alongside Cole Walker, I'd probably say they're both equally England's best right back. It's been disappointing, actually, after such a good World Cup for Trippier, how poor he's been for Spurs this season. So, but yeah, like you said, in terms of the goalkeeping position, now a lot of people have slated me for this, but actually, in goal, yes, Ederson has been fantastic this season. But I think, in terms of a team of the season, you know, the 11 players you give great credit for being something else. I personally would have put Ben Foster in that goalkeeping position in the team of the season, because I think for Watford he has been outstanding, and if it wasn't for him, they would certainly be further down the table than they are right now. And, you know, some people will just look back to the other week against Arsenal, where he conceded that goal when he was caught out by Aubameyang. You cannot ruin a whole player's season based on one moment. In the terms of the Champions League, Ederson was absolutely dreadful against Tottenham in both games. He arguably shouldn't have conceded that goal against Son in both of the legs. You know, he was not good in the Champions League. It just so happens in the Premier League he's been solid most weeks, but then so has Ben Foster. And I'm not taking away from Ederson how good of a keeper he is, but I just think sometimes you need to give special credit to certain players, and Ben Foster I think deserves that.
Yeah, for me, Ederson is probably the best goalkeeper in Europe. I think that's because not only can he stop pretty much any shot that comes towards him, obviously he has his moments, as you mentioned, against Tottenham, but his distribution and just the way he plays with his feet is so polished and it's so sharp. And you see other keepers try it For example, Alisson has tried it quite a few times this season, and it just looks ridiculous. And he's messed up against Brighton, and everyone remembers that. And I think he's a bit too risky. Having said that, he's had a really good season, kept a lot of good clean sheets. Whether that's the defence more than him, I don't know. But I think Edison is a fantastic goalie. But as you said, if it's about the individual season, you could give it to Ben Foster, who has surprised a lot of people. Because he's 34, and he came from West Brom where he was good, and he's gone to Watford where he's been really good. And a lot of people said Fabianski, similar, quite an old goalkeeper. He's got the most saves in the Premier League. And I think he's had a great season for West Ham, especially considering their terrible defence. So, it depends whether you define the team of the season as the best 11 players in the league or the players who have had, the most impressive season. So, it's probably the latter for most people, but it's interesting to see. It was still a relatively okay team. I'm happy to see, of course, Van Dijk in there, Sterling in there, who, for me, have been the best 2 players of the season.
I mean, one thing I am quite disappointed is why Mustafi wasn't in the team of the year. I mean, you've only got to look at his performance against Crystal Palace, where he tried to shuffle the ball out when he was 25 yards from goal, only for Wilfried Zaha to take it off him like he wasn't even there and score. I mean, if there was an award for worst defender, would you give it to Mustafi?
I think so. A lot of people will look at the defenders from teams like Huddersfield or Fulham and say, oh no, it's okay because, they're the absolute worst. But if you look at the upper half of the table, if you look at the elite teams, Mustafi is by far the worst defender out there. Like, he just makes completely game-changing mistakes on such a consistent basis. And you just see him do it week in, week out. There's actually a compilation on YouTube calling Mustafi like the worst defender ever or something. And just all his mistakes and how he's cost Arsenal so many points. And the other week we talked about Unai Emery. And I said, if he actually has worked out the players that are best for his system, he will sell the ones who don't work. And he will bring in new ones. And he is a prime example. He needs to sell Mustafi, because I'm sure someone will buy him in Europe somewhere. And he needs to bring in a new, really strong centre-back because he just makes so many game-changing mistakes. They need someone who's going to make that a solid back four, because then, going forward, they've got a lot. They should be able to have a well-structured team.
I think if Arsenal do get top 4 this season, and it is looking less likely by the week, I think Unai Emery has to be praised immensely for the work he's done at Arsenal. Because to get near the top 4, possibly top 5 with that defence. I mean, my God, if Pep Guardiola had done that, we all would have been praising him and probably giving him manager of the season. At the end of the day, Unai Emery has not been given the most money to, he came out in January and said the only way that Arsenal could bring in players was on loan. I mean, apparently they brought in Denis Suarez. I haven't seen him. God knows where he's gone. Hopefully he's not dead. I mean, quite frankly, I would kill myself if I saw Socrates and Mustafi playing behind me as a partnership. My God. But what's been disappointing is even now Koscielny's come back. He's old. He's just old, and he needs to kind of go just retire at Swansea or somewhere like that. Somewhere where the fans will appreciate him and appreciate his defensive ability, because he's not a Champions League or Europa League defender anymore. He's had his time. He's been a fantastic captain for Arsenal in the past few years, and he's been a fantastic defender down the years for Arsenal. But he's not got that ability anymore. He might be able to read the game really well. He just hasn't got the physical ability to be able to have the pace to be able to read the game like he does and play the game like he does. Because he's such kind of a ball-playing centre-back. He's not necessarily blessed with height, but he's blessed with great intelligence in defensively. And I just don't think his physicality now, and he's now that he's slowed down as he's got older, I don't think that allows him to play his game anymore the way you'd want to at that top level. So Arsenal need a complete defensive revamp. They need now that Aaron Ramsey's leaving, I think it would be a chance to get rid of a couple of older players like El Neni and kind of bring in almost like a midfield general like we saw, like Arsenal have had in the past with Patrick Vieira. They need a midfield general, and some people will look to Granit Xhaka, but he's too inconsistent. People look to Torreira, and I think I saw a tweet from Arsenal about saying about how Torreira intercepts passes. I think I saw a stat. He's got like the 55th most intercepted passes in the Premier League. And you could say it's unfair on Torreira because it's his first season in the Premier League, and as a neutral's sake, I hope he looks better next season because Arsenal need that kind of midfielder, kind of get box to box and really break down play. And so I hope for Arsenal's sake he does get better next season. But if Unai Emery's given some money to really invest, which is what Arsenal are going to need going forward, they need investment. Just to at the end of the day, it's a shame. Money drives success at bigger clubs, and you need the investment in good players. It's not like Arsenal isn't an attractive club. The stadium is fantastic. The training ground facilities are fantastic. They can afford to pay players good money. Just look at Mesut Ozil picking up 350 grand a week or whatever he's on. So they being at Arsenal, it's a good club. It's a good prospect, and with Unai Emery coming in but only being in the club a year, and it's a project. So Arsenal is an attractive place, and depending on where they finish in the league, obviously it's going to depend on who they can bring in. But they just need a defensive revamp, and Liverpool showed that they needed someone solid in defence. They brought in Alisson and Van Dijk. Now they're 1 point of Manchester City in the Premier League. How much difference just two players can make? If Arsenal can bring in two fantastic centre backs, they'll go a lot further than they have done this season.
Now, you mentioned Van Dijk, and of course, Liverpool having a fantastic season in Europe and in the Premier League. But turning towards the Premier League, of course, we have the PFA Player of the Season. Now, a lot of people are saying this is between Van Dijk and Sterling. Some people think maybe Bernardo Silva should also be considered in those three. So, Jack, I'd have to say, I think Van Dijk should be Player of the Season. And this is because, beforehand, Liverpool were well known for being leaky but strong on the attack. A lot of people say the 13-14 season, if they'd had a stronger defence, no question asked, they would have got it through. And when one man comes through and makes such an impact and he changes the spine of a team, surely he should be considered as the best player, especially considering how well their season is going, looking like they may win the title. And not just that, I think he's gone from being a good centre-back to the best centre-back in the world as we speak. So, do you think it should be Van Dijk, or do you think it should be Sterling or someone else?
Well, there are unofficial reports that Van Dijk has won the Player of the Season, and I would say absolutely right, spot on, because like you just said, a player which comes into a club and makes that much of an impact has to be credited with that. And, I don't think we should take away how good of a season Raheem Sterling has had, because the way Pep Guardiola has helped him improve his game is incredible. And, it's not just on the pitch, it's off the pitch. And, he won an award for, I think he won an Inspiring Football award a few nights ago. So, credit to him, because on and off the pitch this season, Raheem Sterling has been a world-class professional. And he's added goals to his game, he's looked a lot brighter, sharper, and he petrifies defences. But what I like about the PFA Player of the Season this season is that they're not just giving it to attackers and players who can score goals. They've recognised that Van Dijk, I mean, we've said it time and time again, Van Dijk is probably the best centre-back in the world. And so it's only right he should be up for that award when you look at the season he's had. And so I think it's completely right that Van Dijk has got that award. And, I think it's now Liverpool have had 3 players of the season over the last 5 years. Haven't won any trophies with it, but great credit must go to the kind of the players that Liverpool are buying. If only they could be more consistent in certain areas of the season. I think now particularly Liverpool are going to be kicking themselves when they could have gone 7 points clear at the top of the Premier League, and now it's only because they've got a game up on Manchester City that they're 2 points ahead at the top of the league. So the pressure is on Manchester City to keep up and grab those last few wins to win the Premier League title back-to-back, which is a fantastic result for Pep Guardiola, considering they've gone to the quarter-finals of the Champions League as well. Champions League games are tough to kind of fit in that with the FA Cup as well. They've got to the FA Cup final, Champions League quarter-final, could well win the Premier League. That's a very successful season for Manchester City, considering they haven't got the greatest depth in squad in the world. But what that has allowed is, and I've said this time and time again, he's looked to Phil Foden. Obviously he won the game against Spurs, so it's nice that he's looked to younger players rather than just bringing a £30 million player to sit on the reserves and play a couple of games all season. He's got this young English talent which he's developing because of the kind of the requirements the squad has to meet. And Manchester City fans should be happy if they win the league and the FA Cup. Liverpool fans, they've still got a chance to win the Champions League. I don't think they're going to beat Barcelona over two legs, personally, but the chance is there. They're in the semi-final. Anything can happen, particularly on a Tuesday night at Anfield. But we must move on to the Championship and the race for promotion. Now, Norwich City have, I think, drawn their last 3 games, and Sheffield United have caught them up. Sheffield United sit 3 points behind Norwich City with 2 games in the Championship to go. And I will say this now, I would love it if Sheffield United nicked the Championship title. As much as I love Norwich, and what a season they've had, if Sheffield United, a club which was in League One not 3 seasons ago, to win promotion to the Premier League by winning the Championship, Chris Wilder, for me, is the best manager outside of the Premier League. And actually, in terms of every manager in English football, he has to be in the top 10 for simply what he's done. The Sheffield United squad barely comes to £5 million. 3 or 4 of them were free. A lot of them from League One. Billy Sharp is 33. He's incredible. They've got David McGoldrick on a free from a mid-table at Ipswich, who's been incredible this season and really fulfilled his potential. And they've got Dean Henderson, who last season was in League One. He's on loan from Manchester United. I think if Sheffield United go up, which is what looking likely, they'll probably make it permanent. And Dean Henderson's a fantastic keeper and could well play for England in the future. But just Ender Stevens, he was at Pompey in League One a few seasons ago. Just what they've done, what Chris Wilder has done with that squad is incredible. But one thing we do have to talk about is Leeds United. How much have they bottled it?
They truly have. I think that most people were expecting, at the very least, automatic promotion and, realistically, first place. I think it's a real fall from grace from the start of the season to now be in 3rd position and for it to be looking like they won't grab automatic at all. I think they're going to really struggle to overtake Sheffield United at this stage, because they'll have their eyes dead set on overtaking Norwich, of course. You saw the Championship team of the season. Leeds United had a lot of players in there. It was them and Norwich predominantly dominating that team, because over the full season, they've been pretty good. But it's just recently that dip in form has not served them well. They are really going to regret it if they don't go up, because if you look in that playoff, if you're looking at a bunch of teams in the playoffs, Aston Villa have won their last 10 in a row. And that is breaking a 100-year record at Aston Villa. That's unbelievable. And I really think that when you see a team like that, you're going to be scared. You saw it with Fulham last season. You know what happened? They were behind, but they won and won and won, and they just couldn't stop winning. And then when it got to the playoffs, they were so confident they could continue that run, and they did, and they got promoted. And so Leeds will feel absolutely devastated if they were to get to that final and lose to a team such as Aston Villa.
Well, the team that come third very rarely gets promoted, because the reason they've come third is because they've been top 2 for most of the season and they've had a real lack of form going into the running. And like you've just said, for me, it's always the team with momentum that wins the playoffs. When you get a few wins behind you, the confidence is just incredible. And the team which sits 3rd or 4th usually has secured their kind of place in the playoffs a few games before the end of the season. And so they kind of tip the foot off the gas. Meanwhile, there's a team in 7th or 8th steaming up, and they steam into 6th, and they are flying high, and they surprise everyone. And that's what I think is going to happen in the Championship. I think Aston Villa are going to win the playoffs, because a team who's won the last 10 is on top of the world. You've got Jack Grealish, who, since he's been given the Aston Villa captaincy, he's been incredible. He's been so influential in Dean Smith's side. And, some people say sacking Steve Bruce was the worst decision Aston Villa made. But those same fans are quiet now because Dean Smith, a Villa man born and bred, is taking the club he loves all the way. And they could well get to the Premier League through the playoffs. But, on the other hand, you've got Derby, who, like Aston Villa, are going into the playoffs on momentum. Derby looked done and dead not 2 games ago. But because of results around them, with a 2-0 win over QPR in added time at the last weekend, they have snuck back into 6th, and Frank Lampard's team could well win the playoffs. And what would you make? What would you make to that? What would you make in terms of our first season for Frank Lampard to win promotion to the Premier League? What could that say about his future?
Well, first of all, that's an unbelievable achievement to take a team who have fallen just short of the mark so many times in the last few years to the playoffs. Just getting there would be brilliant because Frank Lampard, of course, his first managerial role. He's not actually been at this level before, and a lot of people are really shocked at just how well he's done because you see, for example, former players recently, such as Gary Neville, really struggled. You saw Paul Scholes really struggled at Oldham. Yeah. It was a matter of days almost for him. And, it's just great to see a player like that succeeding at such a high level. And I don't know about winning it because I think Aston Villa have more momentum and I think Leeds do have, in my opinion, the strongest side out of the 4 current playoff sides. I don't think they'd win, but I think that they would really give it a good go. And no matter if they win it or not, it's a really successful season for Frank Lampard. And regarding his future, a lot of people are expecting to see him at Chelsea at some point. Whether that's sooner or later, they don't know. But I think if you just look at the way he manages and he understands potential and he does like to support the young players, that's positive, especially for Chelsea, who have really struggled with a lot of those things recently. You could be seeing a manager who is the perfect fit to take them to that next level.
Okay, so that was our Championship promotion roundup. And on to, of course, our previews for this weekend's Premier League games. Harry, do you want to lead us through the fixtures?
So the first game is Liverpool versus Huddersfield. Now, this is an absolutely massive game, of course, and it's on right now. It's the 23rd minute, and it's 2-0 to Liverpool already. Naby Keita scoring in the first minute. Sadio Mane picking up a 23rd minute one. That's Mohamed Salah and Andrew Robertson with the assists. And are you surprised, Jack?
Well, actually, I'd like to know if it was as quick as Shane Long. What a 7.69 seconds Shane Long scored. That's the fastest Premier League goal, beating Ledley King. But first minute, that is incredible for Liverpool. 2-0 up against a defeated and depressed Huddersfield side. I'm really not surprised by that. I'm going to go 5-0 for a final result.
Actually, Jack, that goal was scored after 15 seconds, which is the quickest Liverpool goal in Premier League history. Unbelievable. I'm gonna go 5-0 as well. I think that sounds sensible. And then after that, we've got Tottenham versus West Ham, which is arguably the first big game at Tottenham's new stadium. Of course, fighting for that 3rd position, as well as West Ham fighting to get as high as they can, because, in honesty, that mid-table is really congested right now and is anyone's game. But Spurs at their new stadium, they're just inspired. Like, even against Brighton were so tough and they were so resolute at the back. They weren't shifting, but that magic is still there, and it's still brimming with creativity at the Spurs' new stadium. I think that Spurs will win it, but it'll be close because obviously rivals. So I'm going to say 2-1 to Tottenham.
See, that's interesting. Because, I mean, I know obviously you're going to have kind of the edge at a new stadium, and the atmosphere that's created is just incredible, to be fair. The noise and that huge 17,000 single-tiered stand is it's going to be incredible for Tottenham in the years to come. But seeing the display that Brighton put on and how long they lasted, I personally think West Ham are West Ham are safe. they're going to go there with no fear. It's Tottenham that need the win for the simple fact they need to keep up their. They need to guarantee a third position because finishing fourth and possibly finishing below Arsenal would be disastrous for them, really. So Tottenham have got more to fight for, and I think West Ham are really going to have a good go. I mean, it's difficult because even if West Ham have a go, I still think the quality of Tottenham, especially the form Heung-min Son's in, is just going to be too much. Even without Harry Kane, Tottenham just look incredibly strong, and Sissoko has had a fantastic season. To be fair to him, and that kind of he's real, and Wanyama he's back to that level which he was at when Tottenham bought it, and he's back showing why Tottenham bought him. So that's fantastic for Tottenham after losing Dembele in January, not bringing anyone to replace him. So I think the quality is still going to be too much, and I'm going to say another 1-0 win for Tottenham.
Now up next we've got two teams with astonishing games recently. Crystal Palace, of course, with their mind-blowing 3-2 victory against Arsenal, and Everton with an even more incredible 4-0 victory over Manchester United. Now, no one expected either of these results, particularly as Crystal Palace went to the Emirates and did that, and Benteke scored a goal, which was the most crazy part. And Everton, wow. Well, they just absolutely demolished a terrible Manchester United side. And so, two giant killers clash. That's Crystal Palace and Everton. Now, I think it's going to be close because Everton are incredibly inconsistent, and so are Crystal Palace. And as a result, I'm going to go 1-1.
See, it depends what Crystal Palace team turn up, and it depends what Everton team turns up. Because if that Everton team that turned up against Manchester United goes to Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace are going to get absolutely stonked. What a performance that was. Gylfi Sigurdsson especially was incredible, and it highlighted the problems that Solskjaer has got at Manchester United. For me, if we're talking about future seasons, Manchester United need to sell 15 players, really. They need to have a complete squad revamp. And, they've got the money for it. They've got players which people would want to buy. So, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to continue his revolution and bring in players which want to play for Manchester United and would put everything on the line for the badge. So, Crystal Palace versus Everton, I'm going to go for a 2-0 Everton win.
Now, this is an absolutely huge game. Fulham-Cardiff. Now, Cardiff, 3 points off Brighton with a considerably worse goal difference. Now, a lot of people are saying that Brighton look like they don't quite have the attacking ability to stay in the Premier League, but a lot of people also think that Cardiff do not have the overall quality to stay in the Premier League. Now, Cardiff, I think, have put up an incredible fight this season. Fulham, though, have won 2 on the bounce. The pressure's gone. They're playing the way they want to. They're getting forward. They're scoring. They're relegated already, but they're still a threat. And they're playing for pride. And people seem to forget how important that can be in the Premier League. However, I think Neil Warnock has a point to prove. Everyone doubted him, and no one thought he'd still be at Cardiff for this point of the season. But he has done an amazing job. And actually, I think that they're going to really go for it. And I think they're going to win. And I'm actually going to say 2-0 to Cardiff.
I would say exactly the same thing. People have written Neil Warnock off all season unfairly. Hugely unfairly. The fact that he's had probably the most limited resources. You look at that bottom three, and you compare Fulham to Cardiff, considering that is the game this weekend. Fulham have spent over £100 million and have been relegated. I dare to imagine how little Cardiff have spent. Most of their players are bang average Championship players, and they have done Cardiff City proud this season. They've done Neil Warnock proud this season, and I am hoping that they stay up, because I think if they stay up, they will be able to invest in the squad, and Neil Warnock deserves to stay up in the Premier League, because in terms of management, yes, he may be kind of slightly old-fashioned, but he may be old-fashioned, but it's actually refreshing, because the amount of rubbish you hear from some Premier League managers nowadays, when you see an interview of Neil Warnock, you get everything straight, and you get what he really feels about his team. And what's been refreshing is that he's so laid back. He's like, look, if we get relegated, okay, but we've really had a go, and it's that kind of pride that Neil Warnock has of how well he's done, how Cardiff have done, how the fans have supported him, that actually makes the players want to perform and play out of their skin. And like you said, yes, Fulham relegated and are playing for pride, and that is huge. And there's lots of questions around players' future. Is Ryan Babel going to stay? Probably not. He's really actually been quite fantastic since he's come in. So, Fulham, Cardiff, I think, are going to win and really put the pressure on Brighton. I think Brighton are going to lose, and we'll talk about who they've got in a minute. But Fulham, Cardiff, I'm going to go for a 1-0 Cardiff win.
Well, wouldn't it be great to see Ryan Babel stay at Fulham and resurrect them back to the Premier League? Because he's done a great job since he's come back, and he's in the Netherlands national team, which is one of the best national teams in the world. And I think that would be great. So, next, Southampton, Bournemouth. Now, Southampton aren't safe. They're 6 points off Cardiff, 3 games to go. And if Brighton and Cardiff win their last 3 games, well, you know what could happen to Wreck-It Ralph's team. But I think that'll be fine. I think that Wreck-It Ralph has done a brilliant job at Southampton. And Bournemouth have had a really disappointing second half of the season. I think we mention this every single week, how they've just completely slipped up. And they put in the odd good performance, but they've lost their consistency that they had at the start. And I think Wreck-It Ralph will just want to secure that safety, get with Sean Dyche at Burnley, and they're going to pull off a win. And I'm really thinking a 3-0 win for Southampton, especially with players like Nathan Redmond up top. And, of course, as you mentioned, Shane Long, who has scored more goals than Cristiano Ronaldo this month.
What a stat. Southampton, Bournemouth, Southampton in fantastic form and really actually unlucky to concede that 89th minute goal against Watford. So I think Southampton are going to win, and I think a win would probably secure them next season. And Ralph Hasenhüttl, who is going to, I'm telling you this now, he's going to have the best transfer window the Premier League has ever seen. And Southampton are fighting for top 10, maybe even Europe next season. Just you watch. Write this down, quote me on it. Hold me accountable to this, because I think Southampton are going to have an incredible season next season. Eddie Howe's side have been disappointing. I wouldn't go anywhere as near to say you should sack Eddie Howe. I think that would be ridiculous. But he has been disappointing. But, and considering the size of Bournemouth, I think you have to give great credit to them. For this is not the 3rd or 4th year they've solidified a stay in the Premier League, and fantastic. Bournemouth fans are happy with that, and to even twinkle with European qualification earlier in the season has been a fantastic experience for them this season. And who knows, they might even try and go all the way next season. Wouldn't that be fantastic to see? So Southampton, Bournemouth I think are cruising. Southampton have got something to fight for. A 2-0 Southampton win for me.
And these fixtures are brilliant. Now listen to this one. Watford versus Wolves. 2 fantastic teams, wouldn't you agree? Of course, Watford and Wolves both going for that 7th place, that European spot. Now, Watford, of course, they're in the FA Cup final. They've had a brilliant season, and no one expected them to actually keep it up, because obviously they've had massive inconsistencies in the last 2 seasons. And Wolves, wow, a promoted team has never done as well as this since Birmingham City, and that is just incredible. And I think they're going to surpass Birmingham's record. And they've got some brilliant players. You're just talking about individuals such as Raul Jimenez, who's just had a great season. Second half has been unbelievable. But then, Watford, they've got a revived Gerard Deulofeu, who has been one of the players of the season again. And it's going to be really close. They've both got a lot to fight for here, because both haven't been in Europe for a long time. But you know what? I just feel that Wolves have the edge. I think the team is that slight bit better. They've got a great core in the midfield, and it wasn't even a surprise to me that they beat Arsenal 3-1. So I'm going to go with Wolves to win this one, 1-0.
Well, it's a rerun of the FA Cup semi-final, isn't it? Watford, Wolves. I think Wolves are definitely going to prove that they should be the ones in that FA Cup final, and I think they're going to thrash Watford 3-0.
Short and sweet. Brighton, Newcastle. Yeah, kind of really important for Brighton now. They've really got to get through. Whether that's a draw or a win, I'm not sure. Newcastle didn't really matter. Their season's done. Kind of average season, I guess. Although in ways they've done really well, especially with the players they've got. But I don't know. Brighton will just be. I can't see anything other than a draw, because Newcastle have got talent, and Brighton, they're just defensive rock. So I'm going to go 0-0.
It's do or die for Brighton. I just don't think they've got enough. I think Newcastle, because they're safe, and for the investment that's gone into that squad, Rafa Benitez has done an incredible job. And so I think it's going to be a 2-0 Newcastle win, and more trouble for Chris Hughton's side. But the other thing that's do or die is Rafa Benitez, because he's out of contract at Newcastle this summer. And he has said the only way he's going to sign a new contract is if he gets confirmation from the board that they are going to invest in the squad, so he can challenge. He came out in an interview and said, "I want to challenge with Newcastle." I don't, and he very much replicates the feeling from Newcastle fans. They want to challenge again. They want to challenge for top 10. They want to get top 10 consistently. They want to get, 6th, 7th, 8th place, second round European qualifiers. They want to challenge for European football. They are fed up of flirting with relegation for most of the season and pulling it out at the end. That's not as exciting as going for European football. They want to get more wins than losses in a season. So Rafa Benitez is only going to sign a new contract if Mike Ashley, who wants to sell the club, either says, "Look, sign a new contract. I'm going to sell the club, and you can have all the investment you want," or he's going to say, "I will give you." I mean, when I say investment in the squad, we're not talking £100 million. We're talking 50 million, which, considering Newcastle are going to get just under 100 million for where they finish in the Premier League. 50 million is not a lot. Not a lot. But 50 million would allow them to bring in 3 or 4 fantastic players, which will really take them to that next level. And so, it is do or die for Rafa Benitez and Newcastle, and it's do or die for Mike Ashley. How is he going to approach this going forward? Because if Rafa Benitez leaves Newcastle, he is going to have 50,000 home fans on his back every single week. Because if Rafa Benitez goes, I only see Newcastle on the downward spiral and could possibly get relegated next season. But going back to what I said, for me, Brighton 0, Newcastle 2.
Now, when they say Super Sunday, they absolutely mean it. Leicester versus Arsenal, Burnley versus Man City, Man United versus Chelsea. Massive fights, not just for the top 4, but in one case, for the Premier League title. Now, we do love a bit of quickfire. So, Jack, would you like to do your quickfire of those 3 games?
Oh, of course I would. So, are we ready? Leicester 1, Arsenal 0. Their away form is dreadful. Burnley 0, Manchester City 5. Manchester United 0, Chelsea 0.
Leicester won that European. 1-0 to them. Burnley, Man City. It's going to be a shock slip-up. 1-1. Man United, Chelsea. Man United had the worst second half against Man City I've seen since... Oh, wait. Their 4-0 loss to Everton. So, 2-0 to Chelsea.
And, well, thank you. It's a little bit different this week because I'll let you lead the predictions. So that rounds us up for this first episode of Season 3. And, of course, some of you are going to be thinking, how is this going to work? Because, well, there's only 2 Premier League games left. Well, let me give you a little bit of a schedule as to how this is going to work. So, we will cover the last 2 Premier League games as we have done this week, and we will do next week. But, of course, we have some pretty big games coming up. We have the FA Cup final, in which there may well be, and this isn't confirmed, so don't get crazy, but we may well have a live Football Natter special for the FA Cup, and we may have a live Champions League final special, but, of course, the Football Natter does not end and die at the end of this season. We will do a big end of season review. But don't worry, because we will be back in July at the start of pre-season to pick up and give you our ultimate previews for the 2019-2020 season. So that's how the next few weeks, few months are going to go. So stick around. But for this episode, thank you for listening. Of course, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube and Spotify. Please share it with all your friends. It's fantastic the support we've got on these podcasts, so please continue. We are on the up. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and of course, it's goodbye from Harry.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from me. Goodbye.